We are in week two of our talk series based on this book, Presence and Potential. Experience Your Higher Self and Live from Wholeness by Martha Creek. Last week we talked about the idea of you be you, of being authentic, of being yourself. And the question was, which part of me? The part that is noble or the part that is a little roguish? And we talked about the idea it's all of it. Our wholeness is embracing all of us, even that part of us that we want to, shine in the light, and that part of us where we want to hide in the shadows is being welcoming for all of it so that we can live into our noble self more effectively, more fully. And when I say noble self, that's another word for what unity we call the Christ consciousness, or you might call your divine self, your better half, whatever that word is for you. It's living into that essence of who you are. You can be you and stay connected to the other person. I want to recognize that unity has very powerful practices and principles to help us do that. From the daily practice of meditation and affirmative prayer, from denials or negations and affirmations, the daily forgiveness practice, a daily gratitude practice. And all of these are the most powerful way for us to be aligned with that which we call spirit, the allness of life, love, and wisdom, to be aligned with that essence that is within us, our Christ nature, our true self. It builds that muscle. And I believe that if you do that on a daily basis, when you're out in the wild, life is better because you're present, you're balanced. The wonderful thing about this book is it's really about when you are in the wild and life happens. Anybody have life happen to them lately? Yes, so you know what I'm talking about. Life happening. So in the wild, have you ever been out there and talking with someone? It may be a relative, it may be a friend, maybe somebody who you met on the street, and you're like, oh, you need unity. And then we realize at some point in time that we get a little disconnected too, don't we? We get a little disconnected from this thing called source. We get a little disconnected from our higher self. We get out of tune with it. We might say to ourselves, I need unity, instead of pointing the finger out there. And so this book is really about how do I get back in touch with my principles, with my core essence, my true spiritual self, that noble self, my oneness with God, my oneness with myself, and my oneness with each other. That's what it's all about, is being able to be in touch with all of it, even in the midst of stuff, of life happening. And I believe it begins with the idea of values and beliefs. Values and beliefs are our way to conceptualize this noble self. Our values are a way to put into context what does it mean to live that Christ life in the wild. So what values do you hold that are noble? And you might say, use words like kindness and honesty. And a belief might be, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Anybody hear those words before? Yeah, those are very commonplace. Say we ought to be kind and compassionate and understanding. And then life happens. And unfortunately, it's not like the video games where we level up. All of a sudden, I'm now compassionate. I'm now enlightened. Unfortunately, I have way too much free time on my hand. Unfortunately, it is something that we have to cultivate within ourselves. So what are your values? It might be something like kindness or understanding or empathy or compassion. It might be something like wisdom. It might be something like love. So whatever values really make sense to you, start to think about those and how those show up in your life. Now, the Board of Trustees, what we do is every year we go to a board retreat. And our process every year is to dive into our spiritual values. We do a little exercise and then we present our values. This is what we call our board card. It has my mission state on the top and my values that light the way on the bottom. And you probably can't see it, but I've written on it because my values change over time. Some things might be more important to me than others. And so the board gets together and we start talking about here's who we've come here to be. Here are the values that we bring to this actively so that we know when we get off base in a board meeting, we go back to our board card and we remember that I'm here to be these things. And here's mine. It begins with self-awareness, love and wisdom, faith and authentic will, and open-hearted. And those are my values that I carry with me, and I strive to be on a daily basis. I strive to allow those things to be my guide, to be how I move through life. Now, it's not always easy. And what does it mean anyway? What does authentic will mean to me? And how will I express that in the world? So my authentic will is that which I know to be true. It's me showing up as my best self. What are your values? And what do you value in your deepest relationships? What do you value when you're sitting in line at the DMV? What keeps you centered? What keeps you and brings you back into balance? And those are our values that we can really use as we move through life and as we move through these experiences. These values help to bring us back to our spiritual center, bring us back to that presence and power that's within us and all around us, and brings us back to our experience of oneness. Do your values create connection, or do your values actually create conflict? Are you here for connection, or are you here for competition? Now, there's nothing wrong with competition. We all have it. It's part of our human nature. But is that a value to us where we're always showing up needing to be right? Where we're always showing up needing to have the last word? Do our values create connection, or do they create conflict within us? And that's an easy way to see this is what a good spiritual value is, something that creates connection within me, creates connection with spirit, with God, with the allness of life, and creates connection with each other. So do I want to be right, or am I open to new possibilities? Am I a dictator trying to drive my will into the world, or am I a collaborator to see how we can work together? Am I bullying, trying to exert my control over something or someone? Or am I standing in my spiritual strength, standing in this idea of knowing my oneness, regardless of what's happening around me? Our values help us live into that experience. The next question is, are my beliefs aligned with my values? Are my beliefs aligned with my values? So, for example, maybe honesty is one of my values. And yet there are times, it's normal. There are times when we have a little white lie. Anybody heard of that little white lie? Yeah, it's just a little white lie. And then that little white lie tends to turn, gray sometimes. It's a little darker, it's a little grayer. And then there's a neon red lie. So where is the line of honesty? Where is the true value of honesty? Do my beliefs align with my values? Because some of our beliefs are not in alignment and they create conflict within us. That conflict that's within us that is often under the surface, often shows up in our biases and our unconscious beliefs, unconscious habits. Are beliefs aligned with our values? When they're not, they create conflict within, and that conflict within is expressed and experienced out in the world. Our law of mind action, that idea that those things that we think about and give great attention to is how we see the world. And so we're now seeing the world through my own conflict. And that conflict within, that disrupts our connection with ourselves, with each other, and with spirit. Is what I'm thinking actually aligned with what I value to be true? And Martha gives 4 opportunities in here to talk about how we can lean into that when we are in the wild. Of course, we practice it on a daily basis, but then when we're in the middle of it, can we do these things? And the first one is, can you profess your own values without attacking or judging the other person? Can I say, here's what I believe, here are my values, and I would love to hear what you think and you believe. Not hey, here's my belief, and you better believe it too. You're wrong. And that's where our conflict comes in with one another, where we don't have understanding, where we've shut each other off. And that conflict that we create out there is the same conflict that we have in here that prevents us from experiencing our oneness with Spirit. So it's not about letting go of our beliefs or pretending they don't exist, but just being confident in them. So whenever I find myself being judgmental about someone else, I know none of you have this problem, but when I find myself being judgmental with someone else, I use the spiritual practice of life as a mirror. If I'm really judging someone else, I have to stop and think, what is that reflecting in me? How am I like that? How am I being the bully? How am I being the dictator? How am I wanting to be right, needing to be right? Fixed in my mindset. And whenever I find myself in that place and see that reflected back to me, I use the spiritual practice of being willing. Simply being willing. Being willing to look at things a little bit differently. Being willing to listen for understanding. To hear what the other person is trying to say. To maybe get a glimpse into what the other person is experiencing in their life so I can have a little empathy. It does not mean that I'm a doormat. It doesn't mean that I let go of my things, but allows me to be in the conversation, to have a conversation, to have that act of listening and have understanding. Am I willing to grow? Am I willing to be open to new possibilities? Because with that fixed mindset, there's no growth potential. But with an open mindset, with a spiritual mindset, we're living into that higher expression of that divine nature. Am I willing to create connection and therefore create new possibilities? Am I just willing to do that? Then I have done my work. I have done my work. I don't have to worry about what they are doing because I'm standing in my own spiritual strength. I'm standing in my own noble self. I stand in my noble self with spiritual strength, secure in the presence of divine love. I am in that harmony, in this moment, strong and secure in my spiritual values, in that divine essence that is within me. I am willing to let go. I don't attack. I don't judge. I don't run away. I don't give in to something that is not in alignment with my spiritual values. I'm simply allowing it to be present. In our spiritual reflections, the second idea is do not demand or expect that others think, feel, or act like you. What? Accept differences. Accept our differences. Celebrate our differences. You know, one thing that I love about unity is people come here and they feel like I'm home. I'm with like-minded people. Well, I've been doing this long enough to let you know that there are a lot of things that are not alike in your minds. We all have our own unique experience, our own unique expression. What is consistent is our divinity and our willingness to say yes. Our willingness to say yes to Spirit, to say yes to growth, to be in that presence. So allow yourself to be present because here's the thing, you are a unique expression of life. You allow your noble self to shine. Allow others to have their unique expression of life. And accept those differences. And as we do that, we're taking ownership of what is mine, and mine to own. And what is yours, and yours to own and experience. The next part is take responsibility for your anger. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with anger in and of itself. It's what we do with anger. Because anger is just the signal that there's something disturbing me within. I love this quote from Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25 to 32, the Apostle Paul, when he said, "So then, putting away all falsehood, let each of you speak the truth with your neighbor, for we are all members of one another." We are all That's oneness. We're all members of one another. So let each of us speak the truth, our own spiritual truth, from that perspective of here's what I think, here's where I'm at. I'm willing to change, I'm willing to be open, and here's what's real for me right now. He goes on to say, be angry, but do not sin. So we take a deep breath. Be angry. It's okay. But don't use that anger at someone. Don't let that anger drive you. So I am angry. That's a fact. It's okay. What do I do with that anger? Well, I can either act out. We all know what that looks like. Anyone grow up? Yeah, we all have seen that on the playgrounds, right? We act out, or we take a deep breath and we redirect that energy into something productive, something empowering. The emotion isn't just disempowering. The action is disempowering. The emotion is energy, and we can redirect it into something that is productive. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Don't wait until tomorrow, because that anger will reside within you and turn into resentment, turn into unforgiveness, turn into our bulliness. Notice it and move it into a positive production. And do not make room for the devil. Now, in unity, of course, we believe there's only one presence and one power active in our life and in the universe, God, the good, omnipotence. There's only one presence. There isn't a second power. The devil is not some other being out there pulling strings and trying to make us do that. The devil is us within us, our rogue self that is saying, I'm going to be that angry person. I'm going to be that dictator. I'm going to be that bully. So don't make room for that consciousness within you. Don't give it chance to fester. Allow it to release. Allow it to redirect that energy and know this is my anger and I'm going to deal with it in a productive way. Our emotions don't own us. We own our emotions. Our emotions don't control us. We allow our emotions to tell us what's happening as a reflection of what's going on within us. Our affirmation is in 3 parts. I stand in my spiritual power with poise and strength. I align my thoughts, beliefs, words, and actions with my spiritual values. I am connected with my noble self, with others, and spirit. And so it is. You are a unique expression of the divine, beautiful in your own unique way, experiencing life in your own unique way. And in that spiritual strength, that presence, you are connected with each other. Let's take that into our time of meditation and affirmative prayer.